The African Growth and Opportunity Act, or Agoa, has been a significant source of support for African countries, allowing them to export goods to the United States duty-free and quota-free. However, growing concerns exist that these benefits could be eliminated when U.S. President-elect Donald Trump takes office in January. My colleague Paul Ndiho is here with a special guest. Hello, Paul.
Thanks, Esther. President-elect Donald Trump is proposing a 10% tariff on all imports into the United States, and the Agoa enacted in 2000 and due for renewal in 2025 is under review. Analysts warn that the act could be modified or withdrawn, potentially impacting jobs and companies across Africa. Melvin Foote, founder and president of the Constituency for Africa, is here in studio to discuss the implications of these developments. Mr. Foote, welcome to Africa 54.
Thank you.
Let's start right there. These tariffs, what does this mean for businesses that have, over the years, brought things into the United States?
Well, I think a number of things. I think it's not good for African business. I don't think it's good for American business either. And I think a lot of the U.S. companies that are operating in Africa are very concerned if this bill does not get renewed. So I think it's something that we should have done it a long time ago. I'm not sure the African countries fully took advantage of Agoa. They didn't train their entrepreneurs. So they're still looking to get engaged where they should be already engaged. So I think we have, it's not a good sign for Africa or the U.S. To raise tariffs on African goods.
You've been there since the inception of Agoa. You've been a key player when it comes to how Africans trade with America. What should we look out for?
Well, we got the Africans got to take it seriously. We now have the Continental Free Trade Area, so that's a new dimension. Africans should be trading with Africans. But the diaspora here should have been much stronger engaged in Africa, promoting business and trade. We should be doing all kinds of things now. We should be talking about African clothes. We should be talking about African food. We should be talking about African products coming into the U.S. And now we're still at the early stage of increasing U.S. trade with Africa. So I think we have a long way to go.
Yeah, when Agoa was first put in place nearly 20 years ago, the main agenda on the item was free trade to the United States. Now we are talking about a 10% increase in tariffs as proposed by President-elect Donald Trump. What does this mean for the ordinary person, companies that are doing business across the continent?
I think it does not bode well at all. I think when we talk about trade with Africa, we're talking about oil, gas, minerals, lithium. Those companies, sure, they're going to continue to do business. But if we talk about manufacturing, if we're talking about production of produce, pineapples, and coming to the U.S. market, it's going to be difficult. So I'm not optimistic about U.S. trade with Africa if we're talking about increasing tariffs.
You brought up a very interesting point. In most cases, we trade in commodities, but to a larger extent, we also trade in minerals. Yeah. So should Africans also do the reverse and maybe impose tariffs on American companies trying to get minerals from Africa?
Maybe they should, but they won't. I think from what I see already, a lot of these countries that produce the minerals are looking for Trump to cut some kind of deal with them individually. They're not thinking collectively. They're not thinking in terms of the best thing for African markets. So part of this is Africa's side. Africans are not sufficiently organized to press the U.S. on anything. Then the other side, I don't think the U.S. is really looking to do business with Africa. I think they want the minerals, they want the natural resources, they want the strategic minerals, but they're not really looking to do the clothing and the manufacturing and those kinds of things. So
well, Agoa is up for renewal. I think Congress has been slow in trying to renew this process. What should Africans expect?
Well, I've been involved in several meetings over the last couple of weeks about Agoa and the renewal. And, there's some optimism. I think there's some Republicans who want Agoa to be renewed. I think the Democrats want it to be renewed. So the question is going to be these appointments that Trump is making. You got Rubio now as the Secretary of State. Who's going to be the Assistant Secretary for Africa is going to be key. Who's going to be the Commerce Secretary? overseeing Africa? There's a lot of questions still out there to be determined. So I think over the next few weeks, we'll have a clearer picture about what the U.S. is proposing in terms of an Africa strategy.
Very briefly, when Trump was in power previously, there was not much in terms of his foreign policy towards Africa. Should we expect anything different this time around?
It's hard to expect anything. We know what he called the African countries. We know about that. We know his first lady went to Africa with a safari hat on. There was no serious engagement. Trump himself did not go to Africa. So, if we look at the first term, we cannot be optimistic about this term. But I want to give him the benefit of the doubt. I want him to say, look, I changed. I now see the light. And Africa matters. And let's see who he appoints as Assistant Secretary for Africa. Let's see if he talks about a trip to Africa. Let's talk about the African Diaspora Advisory Council. Maybe there is some talk about he wants to renew it, but different kinds of people involved. Maybe that would be good. So we thought George W. Bush was going to be bad for Africa. He turned out to be the best president ever in terms of the U.S. For Africa. So let's hope that Trump has a renewed sense of what we ought to do in Africa.
Unfortunately, we've run out of time. We have to leave it there. Thank you so much, Melvin.
Thank you. It was always a pleasure.
A pleasure.